Good morning. Today I intend to briefly discuss the reading material Letter to Minicius, written by Epicurus. Now, Epicurus is, in his time, was always misunderstood by his critics. You see, for them, what Epicurus only recommends is to live a life of pleasure, to enjoy life, food, sex, anything that produces pleasure. But in this letter to Minicius, we are able to gain insight as to what Epicurus really means as uh, as the pursuit of pleasure, uh, as to what the pursuit of pleasure really means, at least for Epicurus. So yes, nire-recommend ni Epicurus kay Minicius that uh, we must abide with certain norms and beliefs so that our life would be in order. And sabi ni Epicurus, the ultimate good of life is pleasure, and thereby the avoidance of pain. All other goods, no, come from this chief good, pleasure. Okay? Kaya nga sinasabi dun sa letter ni Epicurus kay Minicius that if death is concerned, no, we must not be really so preoccupied with it, because by the time we die, there is no more senses that could detect pain and pleasure. And so Epicurus says that the fear of death is actually irrational. Okay? So only pleasure and pain can make my life be good or miserable. And for that to happen, sensation is a must. Pag patay ka na, wala ka ng sensation. So, kapag patay ka, wala ka ng sensation, hindi mo na ngayon mararamdaman if life is really worse or not. Death is the cessation of existence. And if existence ceases, no, there is no room for pleasure or pain. And therefore, death could not really harm us. Bakit ngayon masakit di umano ang kamatayan? Death is something painful, number one, for those who experience the death of someone. And death is somewhat painful to our mental faculties when we repeatedly think of it. But of course, sabi na nga ni Epicurus, no, the fear of death is irrational. There is no reason for us to be so wrestled upon or on the idea about death. Okay? We should not fear it because it has not yet arrived. The dead, on the other hand, cannot say na painful or hindi ang kamatayan because they no longer exist. And kasabay dyan, sinasabi ni Epicurus that because of these arguments, he says that hindi goal dapat ng tao mabuhay ng matagal. Okay? Hindi ibig sabihin ay mabuhay ka ng matagal ay punong-puno yan ng pleasure. Diba? How many of us have seen people who are, in their 90s, sometimes breaching 100 and above, but they can no longer, interact, enjoy life, no? Kagaya nung bata pa sila. Kung ang buhay ay maikli, pero punong-puno ng pleasure, okay, mas okay yon para kay Epicurus kaysa sa isang mahabang buhay na you avoid pleasure or pleasure avoids you dahil may sakit ka na. No? Di ba? Pag halimbawa kumain kayo sa buffet, no? Pag sa buffet, some would say hindi yung dami ng nakakain sa buffet ang goal dapat ng tao, kundi i-enjoy yung mga pagkain na normally hindi niya nakakain. Dahil mas may pleasure yon. Hindi mo siya lagi nakakain eh. No? Kaya huwag ka lang magkakanin sa buffet ng marami dahil normally kinakain mo naman yon. Noodles, huwag din. Yung mga fried chicken, huwag yun. Pero yung mga kakaiba at kung hindi ka naman ganun kayaman, mahal kung kakainin mo lagi. Bagay nung sashimi, no? Yung mga choice cuts ng steak, halimbawa, kung hindi ka naman lagi nag-steak. So, the buffet is the time for you to enjoy that. No? So, it's not so much of enjoying the longest life or preferring the longest life, but enjoying the life which has greater value and therefore the life that has greater pleasure. No? Pero sinasabi rin ni Epicurus doon sa sulat niya kay Minicius that we're not after the things that are immediately pleasurable. Kasi there are immediately pleasurable things that in the long run, in the future, no, it will be painful. So nag-enjoy ka nga sa una, no? Pero ang kasunod naman nito ay pain. No? So we must maximize pleasure and view it in a futuristic way. No? The type of hedonism na ina-advocate ni Epicurus is not a life that is constantly full of pleasures. No? He contends that the greatest amount of pleasure will be produced through intellectual pursuits. So you see in the letter to Minicius, he clarifies it by saying that actually, ang pleasure na dapat mong i-pursue ay mga pleasure na pinag-isipan ng mabuti, ng maayos, ng may karunungan. At kapag pinag-isipan mo ito ng may may katwiran, pinag-isipan mo ng maayos, no? Actually, the pleasurable life is and can also be a life that is virtuous. Okay? So, mahalaga nating makita ito dahil ang hedonism, particularly itong kay Minicius, Epicurus, ay foundation ng consequentialism, utilitarianism. So, ano ba ang consequence ng iyong mga pleasure na pinipili sa buhay? Huh? Are you selecting the pleasures that in the long run will benefit you? Or are you selecting the pleasures that only gratify you at the spur of the moment, but not, in the long run? Okay? So baka may mga pleasures sa buhay na mas pleasurable kapag you know you share this pleasure with others, such as your family, than taking pleasure into things na ikaw lang yung sasaya, pero yung mga malalapit sa iyo sa buhay will not benefit. So makikita natin dito na although Epicurus is not really categorical in saying that others should benefit from the pleasure, the clue here is the pursuit of pleasure via reasoned analysis of what the pleasure is, whether it's just for the moment or will benefit you in the long run, and will guarantee that you will have a life that is of greater value than a life of longer years pero hindi naman greater value dahil hindi ka marunong pumili ng mga pleasure na ipapursue mo sa buhay. Okay? So I'll end the recording here, no? Mag-start na lang tayo ng panibagong recording for your questions. Okay? Let me just stop.